everyone, my name is Jasmine Sky and I am here today with my first video of 2021, which is very exciting. We have made it through 2020. We are on to the next stage of whatever it is that's going to happen. So I'm feeling pretty good. And in reality, 2020 for me, while it was a very difficult year, and I want to acknowledge all the hurt and the pain that happened in 2020, for me personally, it was actually not a bad year. So today I'm going to give a quick wrap up / summary of what I did in 2020 in regards to reading and writing and my goals for reading and writing in 2021, which I'm very excited about. We're gonna start with the reading side of things and then we'll do the writing side of things because, yeah. So, reading. In 2020, I unfortunately did not keep track of my reading. I have not kept track of my reading. I think ever in my life have I actually kept track of my reading or had a reason to keep track of my reading. Even back when I thought I wanted to do BookTube, me keeping track of my reading was saying everything I read at the end of a month, which I could then remember everything I read that month in a monthly wrap up. So I didn't track on Goodreads. I didn't track in a journal. Like I just didn't track my reading at all. But I've decided that I would like to keep track of my reading over the course of the year because in 2020, I don't think I read enough young adult books. I really expanded my horizons when it came to adult science fiction and fantasy. I really read a lot of new and amazing adult novels, but I just did not read as much YA as I should have, considering the fact that for my writing career, I want to publish in YA before I publish in adult. So I need to get better at having at least a more even spread of both YA and adult novels, and I have a lot of YA novels to read. So I'm gonna get into that in a second. But the point is, I can only guess how many books I actually read in 2020. I'm gonna guess it's in the ballpark of 40 books, something around that range. So, but what I do track is my favorites. Anything I rate 5 stars, I put on my Goodreads, which is linked down below. So if you're interested in all of my 5-star reviews, please go ahead and check that out and you can see everything I did read and rate 5 stars in 2020, as well as the first 2 books I rated 5 stars in 2021 because it's already been a great year for my reading. So that's great. But right now I'm gonna go over my top 5 of those 16 5-star reads and tell you a little bit about them. Some of them I mentioned in my mid-year book tag and others I read since then, so I will mention them now. So the first of those books my parents are currently borrowing, and that is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo. This one came out in March 2020, and then the companion sequel, which is When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain, came out in December of 2020. I haven't yet read this one, but it is high on my list to read in 2021 because I adored the first, Empress of Salt and Fortune, which is the story of a non-binary historian who is trying to get this old handmaiden to tell the story of the now dead empress. It is so good. It's a Tor novella, which means it's very short, and this world is amazing. The characters are so alive. The first one definitely is a bit confusing when you go into it. It does not hold your hand. It doesn't explain things, but about halfway through, at least in my experience, it all started to crystallize in my head, and I just fell in love with that book. So that was my first top 5 of 2020. And then my next top 5 of 2020 was Check Please Volume 2, Sticks and Scones by Ngozi Ukazu. This is the second book in the Check Please graphic novel duology. This is probably my favorite graphic novel of all time. I've been following it since it was a webcomic updated on her Tumblr, all the way through it getting these physical copies and the series finally being finished, which is just, ooh, so sad because I would have read 500 more years of these characters. So this series, Check Please, follows Eric Biddle, who is a gay former figure skater turned college hockey player, and the shenanigans of his college hockey team. Eric Biddle is also a baker and a YouTuber, so a lot of the panels in this are framed as like him talking to his YouTube channel. So the second book in the duology did come out in April of this year, of last year, and I read it the minute it came in my mail, and I just fell in love with this series all over again. It is so hopeful and fun and uplifting. It was really what I needed to read in April. It really was a nice balm to my soul. And if you have not checked out this series yet and you enjoy graphic novels or hockey or gays exploring life, then I would check this out. The third on my list was my favorite YA novel of this year, and that was Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a standalone contemporary fantasy about a trans brujo who gets caught up in a murder mystery and falls in love with a ghost, and it is beautiful and dramatic. The world building is lovely, and I just had a really fun time reading this book. Highly recommend it for those of you who like urban/contemporary fantasy. This one did a really good job with mixing the fantasy elements and the modern high school life elements. And this one came out in early September. Number 4 on my list is one of my more recent reads of 2020, Hench by Natalie Zena Walshcott. This is another book that was released in September of 2020 that totally blew me away. This one is a superhero book, but it is very much adult. Lots of trigger warnings for gore, medical horror, abuse, just like some pretty nasty stuff is in this novel, but it all fits very, very well. This is the story of an accountant who is hired by a supervillain. It's a budding power couple romance. It's got a lot of really interesting conversations about what makes someone a hero versus a villain. And no one in this book is a good person. No one. They're all horrible in their own ways, but it is very, very compelling, and I really, really loved this book. This is, as far as I know, a standalone, though it definitely left itself open for a sequel, so we'll see if it gets one. I hope it does because I adored it, but it stands alone very, very well. While the romance in this is between the main female character and a man, the main female character is bi. It is very, very clear in the text, and this is very much a non-heteronormative world in all the best ways. I am very impressed by the way that queerness is just so present in the world building and in the prose and in the main character's life. So if you enjoy some non-heteronormativity, I would highly recommend this one. Finally, number 5 on my list of favorite reads from 2020 are actually technically 2 books. They were not 2020 releases, but I did read them both in 2020, and that was Ancillary Mercy and Ancillary Sword by Ann Leckie. These are the final 2 novels in the Imperial Radic trilogy, which starts with Ancillary Justice, which I read in 2019, and this trilogy is my favorite series in the world as of now, has been since I finished it. I just adore this series. This is about the AI of a spaceship named Breck that gets trapped in a human body. The first book is definitely a revenge novel, and the later books become more traditional military sci-fi, and they have such good social commentary. In the second book, I believe it was, we basically got confirmed that Breck is ace, but in the final book, for those of you who care, it did have more of a romantic element with Breck, and it basically ended in a poly relationship, which I really, really enjoyed, because as much as I love an ace main character, I love even more ace main characters that still get to have romance, and it was lovely. My favorite of the series is definitely book 2, which is Ancillary Sword. This one is just so my cup of tea, It's an inside joke if you've read the series. Tea is very important. But the entire trilogy is amazing, and I do highly recommend it all if you are at all interested in science fiction, adult science fiction. read this series. It's so good. And those were my top 5. Was it a surprise to anyone that every single one of them was queer? Not to me. So let's move on to 2021. As I mentioned earlier, in 2021, I would really like to read more YA, though I do have a ton of adult science fiction and fantasy novels on my to-be pre-ordered list because there's a lot of good queer adult sci-fi fantasy coming out next year, and I want to read it all. Yeah. But the other big thing that I want to do in 2021 is really get through my bookshelf. I recently counted all the books on my bookshelf and counted how many I had read and how many I have not read, and I am sitting at a very sad 48% read, which is less than half of the books that I own I have actually read. I do not like that. So my main goal when it comes to reading in 2021 is to get that number up to closer to a third or even 3/4 of the books on my bookshelf read. So I do have pre-orders of 2021 releases, but other than that, I'm gonna try my hardest to focus on what I already own because I have a lot of books here that I need to try. That being said, I'm gonna quickly go through my most anticipated YA and adult books of 2021 just to give you a taste of what I hope to read this coming year in the new releases category. For YA, number 1, Bedazzled by Ryan LaSala. This comes out, actually it might already be out by the time this video is up, on January 5th. This is a queer YA rom-com about a competitive cosplay competition, which for those of you who know, I am a cosplayer and I am just, I'm so into that concept. Number 2, Wings of Ebony by J.L. comes out January 26th. This is an urban fantasy set in Houston, heck yes, Texas rep, about a Black teen who discovers that she's half god. That just sounds so much fun. And then number 3, Hanny and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jadigar, which comes out on May 25th, which is another contemporary rom-com. This one's starring 2 Bengali girls who fake date, one of them to prove to her friends that she's bisexual, and the other one in order to get elected as head girl. So, ooh, I love a good fake dating plot, and sapphic fake dating even more so. So I'm very excited about that. Number 4, we have Blood Like Magic by AuthorTube's very own Liselle Sambury, and this one comes out on June 15th. This is a science fantasy debut about a witch who enters a genetic matchmaking program to find her true love so she can kill him to save her family's magic, which sounds very delicious. And finally, number 5 on the YA side of things is The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker, which doesn't have a cover yet, so I'll just put Kylie's face up there. And this is about a half-British, half-Japanese soul reaper who leaves the London Grim Reaper Society for the Japanese Shinigami, determined to find acceptance from their goddess of death. So that just sounds like a really fun time, and Kylie is actually one of my agent siblings. We both have the same agent, so I very much want to support her when her debut comes out in October. And on the most anticipated adult books side of things, the first of those is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, which is coming out February 2nd. This is a space opera about 2 men from rival worlds who are forced into a political marriage and must learn to work together to solve a murder and prevent interplanetary war. More delicious romance tropes, but this time wrapped up in a fun space opera political intrigue adventure, which is just my jam, and I am very, very excited for Winter's Orbit. Number 2 is Fireheart Tiger by Aliette de Bodard, and this comes out February 9th. This is another Tor novella, which I'm excited about because I have had just great luck with the Tor novellas so far. This is another complicated sapphic romance, and it is set in a fantasy world based on Vietnamese folklore, so excited about that. Number 3 is The Unbroken by C.L. Clark, coming out March 23rd. This is another Agent Siblings debut, which, go Agent Siblings 2021, I'm very excited. This one is about a lady mercenary and a princess who have to come together to try to save their kingdom from political turmoil, which is very exciting. And then number 4 is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, which is coming out on June 8th. which is another sapphic romance about a captive princess and a maidservant in possession of forbidden magic who, again, have to become allies to save their empire from destruction. So yeah, we're sensing a theme here, but I love it. And then finally, on number 5, She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which is coming out July 20th. Yet another sapphic romance. This one is a gender-bent retelling of the monk who became the founding emperor of the Ming Dynasty in China. Super exciting. So, in 2021, I do hope to read all 10 of those books if I can, as well as a ton of other books. And unlike last year, I am going to track my reading. I have this lovely magical monthly reading planner that I got from an Owl Crate box like forever ago when I was still subscribed to Owl Crate, but it's got this page that I can write down all of my favorite books. As you can see here, I already have 2 favorite books from 2021, but in general, it also has pages for me to write down my TBR and to write down every single book and what I thought of it. So even though I am only going to publicly share my 5-star favorites, because that's just the way I want to run my Goodreads, I will know all of the books I read in 2021 so long as I keep up with this reading planner, so that at the end of the year I can give you guys some stats if you want of how many books I read of what type, and that'll be fun. So let's move on to the writing side of things. In 2020, I revised my Witch YA fantasy something like 6 times. I wrote draft 2 in February and March, draft 3 in April, 3.5 in May. I signed with my amazing agent in August, then wrote draft 4 in August and September, 4.5 in October, and I am almost done with draft 5. The first half of that writing blog is on my channel. I will link it down below if you are interested. And the second half of my draft 5 writing experience, I think, will be my next video. So that was a lot of revising. I don't even want to calculate how many words that was that I wrote. But on top of all of that, I also wrote 25,000 new words in 2020 on 2 different adult ideas. I wrote 10,000 of my desert fantasy and 15,000 of my space fantasy. I did vlog both of those experiences. Neither of those were extremely successful experiences. Space fantasy was more successful than the desert fantasy, but either way, I'm just definitely still trying to find my voice and my rhythm when it comes to adult science fiction and fantasy. So it was an experiment, and I definitely hope to make more progress on that in 2021. For 2021, I would like to set a goal of getting a book deal, but that's not something that I can control. We're just gonna keep our fingers crossed, I guess. What is in my control is to write a new book. So it's gonna kind of depend on what happens with my Witch YA on submission and whether I get a book deal, because the Witch YA is intended to be a series. So if I get a book deal, hopefully my full new book that I'll write in 2021 will be the sequel to the Witch YA. If that's not working out, or if I get some time at the beginning of the year while that's still all happening, then I will write a different book. Either way, the goal is to write at least 1, if not multiple drafts of a completely new project in 2021. We will see what happens when we get there. For the beginning of 2021, right now I'm finishing up my draft 5 of the Witch YA, so that's gonna be done really soon. And for the next couple months then, I am going to put most of my writing energy and focus into being the best Author Mentor Match mentor that I can be. I am a mentor for Author Mentor Match Round 8, which is very exciting. I will link AMM down below if you have not heard of it. Submissions to AMM open up January 11th through the 14th. So very soon I will be tasked with going through those who submit to me. That's gonna take up a lot of energy in January and February and potentially March. So we'll see how much writing of my own I get done, other than doing what I need to do with my Witch YA fantasy, depending on what my agent says when I turn this draft into her. Those are all my goals for 2021. Here's to hoping that this year continues to bring success for myself and for everyone who are on this very difficult publishing journey, whether you are still drafting, revising, whether you're querying, whether you're on submission, whatever it is, or have already published books but working on whatever comes next. Wherever you are in your writing journey, I hope that you have a very creative and productive and successful 2021 because you deserve it. We all deserve it. And that's all I have. Please go ahead and let me know your 2021 reading and writing goals, or if you want to talk about some of your successes from last year, feel free to do that as well. I would really love to hear it. As always, in my description, I have causes that I think you should support. Please check those out. I have added some new ones, so hopefully you will go and give those your support and start 2021 off with a gift of time or money or just spreading the word, whatever it is that you can do. You can always support my channel by liking or subscribing, and I look forward to chatting with y'all in the comments.